But we live in a vastly different world. Never forget that. It's a vastly different world from the one you're trained to believe in. And you're trained every day to believe in it. Every day. And because of that, hell can start to emerge. It gets a foothold. And then you're taught, well, it's not really hell. Don't look at it that way. Oh, perception management. Don't look at it that way. Look at it this way. It's all ready to go, the whole system. Don't think they just make mistakes at the top and it gets out of hand and they can't control it. Don't think that for a second. I think it was FDR said it, or maybe even it could have been Theodore Roosevelt. If it happens in government, it was planned that way. And it's a fact. They're not surprised at the top. They don't suddenly say, oh, I didn't know that. No one told me. When you're able to look back over years, you cannot doubt whatsoever that the politicians that are paraded in front of you in most countries are really just front puppets. And you can't read articles from the United Nations, for instance, this big private organization that you don't get to vote for because it's not democratic. And it has its own agenda for world governance, as they like to call it. But in the process, they got to demolish all national countries along the way. Remember, that was really set up by people in the big pre-existing organizations of the world, going way back into the 1800s, even before that, in fact. There were really outcrops of the revolutionary movement. And remember, too, that the revolutionary movement was for global government of a sort, even in the 1700s. So you're living through an ongoing big plan here, and the Royal Institute for International Affairs, with its branches of Council on Foreign Relations, including the North American, the Far Eastern group, and the European Council on Foreign Relations, it's all the same big club, you know. Everybody who seems to be in positions of elected power is a member of it. And it's not guesswork either, because even their own historians have said that down through time, that the leaders of all parties are members of this particular group. And they have their ultra-specialist group even above that, where they would draw people off into the Trilateral Commission, another private organization, which you don't vote for. And they are basically the implementers of amalgamating the planet financially, culturally, legally, and in every other way. And of course, the CFR and Trilaterals have drafted up all your free trade agreements too for the big corporations, which they also have the biggest shares in too. So you got to really look at the whole system, and how it's presented to you is always with the wonderful face of helping the world, and it's all a big lie, of course. Big lie. It's a scary proposition, actually, because when you look into the same groups who've helped foment world wars, and even talked about it afterwards, that not enough people were killed, and they wouldn't give up their sovereignty, so they'd have to have another one, sort of thing. Well, they're still at it today, of course. And they tried the Soviet system, the communist system. They financed communism into being. Many authors, thank goodness, were awake during the time who wrote about it. Others came later who had positions of scholarship at universities and so on. And they could come out eventually and talk about it too. Because everything on a large scale that happens in the world is meant to happen that way, is planned that way. I can remember even before 9/11 happened, and after, as a kind of backtrack to hide the fact they knew, but intelligence agencies said that nothing could happen on a terrorist scale in the world anymore, because of the incredible surveillance they had across the planet on everybody. And 9/11 came along, and it's all a big surprise, only to those inside the US, apparently. Not all factions of it, other intelligence agencies knew, inside the US. And Israel knew, they warned it, they came on, and BBC came on with the people who ran the Home Office in England. And they also had intelligence on this too. So many people had intelligence about it and warned the states who apparently took no notice. And so much was gained, let's put it this way, so much was gained from this massive catastrophe that, whether you want to believe it or not, those people who could write about the need for a Pearl Harbor event to get the public opinion on their side. You see, you must always get public opinion on your side if you want to go to war. And they said they would need something in a Pearl Harbor event to happen inside the States, so they can go ahead with their agenda of all the countries that they've now, since then, taken out, and a few still to go. Syria is still on their list, of course, and they published a list, of course. And only the most, and I've met people, you meet nice, decent people who literally let the most horrific things happen around them because they refuse to believe that folk can do that. And it's astonishing, isn't it? But it's because they're so naive and nice as well. They'll want to be nice, and they give people the benefit of the doubt 1,000 times before they'll have to admit, wait a minute here, this is wrong, or this is not working, or whatever. And the elites at the top know this, they understand, and they raise us all to be trusting. They use our natural instincts. As I mentioned before, you couldn't be born into a natural little tribe and live in paranoia. Nature has you expecting that those above you who are older than you and your tribespeople and maybe your chief is going to have your best interests at heart. So you take that out of context, you put it into the modern system, which is nothing like the old tribal system, and you're conned left, right, and upside down and sideways by professionals who also use your money to study you, using other professionals, and they can then manage you all the more and fool you all the more and use you all the more. It's terribly sad, but that's the way it is. And people still don't really want to believe that. They really don't. In their day-to-day life and work or business or whatever else they do, they have to get along with people. And you can't get along with them if you're always arguing with them. So we accept being fooled. And there are many so-called scholarly articles out there in university campuses too, or universities too, that say that, well, it's better than a real open tyrant system. But the thing is, the objectives are the same. The techniques are maybe a bit slower because they take a little bit more preparation, training the public to believe the next step they're going to tell them and get them to believe. It takes time, preparing the way. But they get it done regardless today. They do. And they've all the money in the world since they're using our money. All wealth comes from the people and it is from their labor, isn't it? Marx was right in that regard. And that's why they're going to have a mass slavery population too. Slavery has always existed in one form or another. Aldous Huxley mentioned that, so did Charles Galton Darwin. Think about it, one form or another. And the best form is where they don't tell you you're a slave. Not that long ago, in the 1800s and into the 1900s, you go into dictionaries, which were awfully good at the time, much, much thicker, of course, like Orwell talked about back then. But they had definitions of slavery and genocide. Genocide can be done many ways. Deliberate importation of many people to overrun a people from another country was one form. It still is actually the United Nations. It's quite interesting, the double standard they've got. They know this, but they don't want to talk about it. It will create a genocide. Refusing people to speak their own language in their own countries is a form of genocide too. Anything that destroys the culture, the memory of a culture or the people and their history is all part of genocide, for those who don't quite get it. Ancient regimes, as I like to call it, regimes, also used these techniques. They would move people from their countries en masse at times. Like the Persians did it one time. Rome did it too. Anybody who could cause them a problem, they'd move off the land into other places, other countries, part of deculturalization. And over time, they assimilate to an extent, they lose their cultural identity, and they'd always hope they'd merge in with them, and that'd be the end of the problem. It's used over and over again. It's amazing too that it isn't until someone points out what you're actually seeing before the penny drops, because you're trained to always to see things in a different light. And you can call, for instance, mass migration, where there's no hope of assimilation. Every country was based on trickling in of peoples from all over the place. And they would eventually assimilate. That's what happened during the second or third generation. They'd be assimilated. But en masse, they don't have to assimilate. They'll keep their tongue, they'll create their own areas. Just like ancient townships, even in the Middle East, they had different quarters for different peoples, even then. So what you're looking at is what genocide to an extent down the road by getting rid of the domestic populations, which is, of course, a goal. And some of them at the top and some of those who are making it happen have actually said so, quite openly. When they don't call it what it is, they give a different reason for it, then the folk won't see what it's amazing, as I say. You got to go with, use your own logic, and with things that you're seeing, or you're feeling even, from what you're reading, say, what is this? What is this I am seeing? Don't wait to be told. It will become very evident to you. Big things happening at the moment, very big things. But you won't know it from the media, because the media today literally is the new media. The old media was to keep things quiet too, and when things leaked out was to calm the public down, and often go into different points of view in the same topic by different parties, so that you get confused and give up. Standard old technique too. But modern stuff today is such a squelching of those at the top, of any real facts on things, that the mainstream media now has gone into, literally, it's like National Enquirer type stuff. It really is. And thousands of pictures, they all have pictures to try and intrigue you all day long, wasting your life away here. Oh, look at that, oh, look at that, oh. All nonsense pictures and photographs. That's new technique. As you're getting weaned out, and that's the goal, to be weaned out from even participating and knowing what governments are up to and demanding to know. You're getting weaned off that until you'll just, and I've said, I gave this talk in the 90s, I think the first time, that you'll get weaned out of even expecting or to know, and it won't be your right anymore. You'll just say, oh no, I can't be bothered. Let the experts deal with it all. And that's the system that's coming in. And as Europe then takes its share of the mayhem and terror, then you're told to accept it and not to speak about it, ordered not to say anything. You better ask who your governments are. And you better ask who they represent, because it certainly isn't the people. When the excuse to go to war in past years and times has been because someone is going to attack you and they want to defend and keep their people safe, you better ask why the people at home can't say anything anymore. You better. Because a lot of decent people are hurting or dying because of this, who didn't have anything to do with it. And it's not a matter of tit for tat. Say, well, you know, a lot of those people got blown up with drones and we've seen it before. Had nothing to do with it either over in those countries in the Middle East or in Asia. They never had nothing to do with it. But once it starts, it doesn't stop. Doesn't stop. It just gets worse and worse and worse. And you got to understand, you got to always ask the question, who gains? Who benefits? You can find it out. And you can see the ones who are profiting from it too. And there's other ones too with other geopolitical goals for other reasons as well. But it's all out there, and it's got nothing to do with what you're told. Nothing. As I say, that there's so much I could say, but you can't say. And you got to be careful in this day and age to even just say what's logically apparent and very true. See, truth has nothing to do with it. Truth has nothing to do in law, according to the laws, statutes, with what you're saying. That's already happened. When people thought they get to court, they could say something because it's true, and factual, and you can prove it. It doesn't matter. It makes no difference. Truth doesn't count, you see. There was something that happened a while back, maybe a couple of years ago, and that's what came out. The judge said that facts don't matter and the truth doesn't matter. So don't get confused about justice being there to do with right and wrong. There's a big agenda there, and they know there's going to be mayhem as they go through the agenda. They know it all. And I really do think the future for a long time will be to take down all of society across the whole planet, make it as dysfunctional as possible. So there you go. That's a quick little blab for tonight anyway, as the weather is still freezing. And again, across parts of Europe too, in Britain, freezing weather. Because now, I mean, weather modification is a routine exercise every day now. It's just daily, it's routine. Modifying directions of the jet currents, the streams, the air streams and so on. All easy modified, and they can blast up the streams from the Antarctic when they want to as well. And that's very cold, very, very cold indeed. What a world, eh? What a world when you see and you hear and you know. But you're forbidden. That actually don't want you to even think about what you're seeing and hearing. Don't look at that. Be happy. Look the other way. Then they put a little puppet there in front of you and you go, ah, that's what they want. And they're doing that actually for TV and entertainment and so on. As they brainwash you at the same time. Anyway, keep warm and stay away from that flu. It's pretty nasty out there. Just keep away from it. And if you get it at all, hit it fast and hard with the right things, and don't stress yourself or tax yourself. From myself, Alan Watt from Ontario, Canada, it's good night. May your God or your gods go with you.